Hello! In this video, I'll be showing you how I made this long Buc-ee Beaver. Buc-ee is the mascot for a Texas chain of convenience stores. He is super cute looking. I actually went to a Buc-ee's location and picked up this pillow pet to use as a base. I decided to use the pillow pet because I wanted to be able to reuse as much of the original materials in the final design as I possibly could. This helped to reduce cost of the project as well as reduce the overall waste. The first part of the process is to completely disassemble. I just used a seam ripper and removed the stuffing to set aside and use later. Unfortunately, after disassembly, I realized there wasn't enough of the red fabric to make the length of creature that I had intended, so I grabbed some extra fabric from my stash. Luckily, the belly piece was in one nice rectangle, so to make as long of a Buc-ee as I possibly could, I decided to cut the belly fabric into 3 equal portions. Go ahead and set those pieces aside for now. Off camera, I measured and cut an equal length of my contrasting red fabric, but decided to make the strips 3 inches wider overall. To make a pattern for the legs, I needed the head to visualize the size that I wanted to make. Then I sort of roughly sketched out the shape of leg that I wanted and made sure to add seam allowance so that I had room to turn these legs inside out. Now it's time to transfer your template of the legs onto your desired fabric. I used Sharpie because I didn't have anything else on hand, and the sort of upholstery vinyl that I'm using worked out well for this since it didn't bleed. As you can see, I haven't separated the individual legs yet. This is to make sewing them together a little bit quicker. I can just send them through my machine and separate them later when it's time to turn them right sides out. And voila! Now all the legs have been sewn together in one running stitch on my machine. You can see that I already attempted to turn one of the legs right side out, just so that I could see that it was the shape that I wanted. Now it's time to turn the rest of the legs, rinse and repeat about 100 more times. I'm not going to lie, this process was very time consuming, and I wasn't even finished yet. In fact, I have plans to now stuff each of these legs just to give them a little bit more shape. To attach the legs, place them on your fabric facing the right side and to the inside of your fabric, then stitch them down along the edges. Now you can really start to see your creature taking shape. I was so pleased at this moment. I just needed to take a breath and appreciate how things were coming along at this point. Now it's time to add your belly fabric. Because of the legs, this part can be a little bit tricky. My advice is to take it really slow, and if you're having trouble on the machine, it wouldn't hurt to hand sew some of these spots. Once you have both sides sewn, you can turn your Buc-ee skin right side out. Now it's time to reattach the tail. I'm going to do that first by hand stitching it on, and then you can sew on the rear end as well. Make sure not to completely close up the rear because you'll still need to be able to stuff it later. Now is a good time to start making your spine. I'm using this 18 gauge wire doubled up on itself a few times. I will note that it ended up not being as posable as I had intended, so if you wish to have a highly posable Buc-ee, I recommend using an articulated spine instead, or just a higher gauge wire. With the spine already inserted into the body, it's time to hand stitch the head onto the rest of the body. Now it's time to put that polyfill back into the rest of the body. Once your Buc-ee is nice and plump, it's time to hand stitch his bum, and then you're done. This Buc-ee came out to be approximately 5 feet in length and has 50 legs altogether. He's so long he almost doesn't fit into frame. And there you have it. That's how you make your very own Long Buc-ee. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions.